we spoke about today's topic. Last week we spoke about tafkhim, ra with tafkhim, right? 8 cases of ra with tafkhim. We discussed 8 cases when ra will come, will be read with a full mouth. Full mouth ka matlab tafkhim. We'll be reading it heavy. So we did eight cases last week. And in that we had 2 exceptions. We spoke about the exceptions. And inshallah, today's class is going to be ra when it comes with tarqiq. Okay. Okay. There are 4 cases in which ra has tarqiq. Okay. The first one is, as you know, when ra has a kasra, ra will be tarqiq, right? So wherever you have a kasra on ra, the ra will be read light. Light. Tarqiq meaning, the meaning of tarqiq is the sound of ra will be not heavy, the opposite of heavy, which will be a light sound. So when I have a ra with a kasra, I will read it with a light sound. So look at the first one. The first example is one nahari, re, not re. Okay, I'm saying re. Fariqan wadhkuri risma. Okay, wadhkuri ri. So the ra is going to be light. The tafkhim, the ra is heavy, right? For tarqiq, the ra is light. The next example is, if the ra is sakina, and the letter before it is a sakin, and the letter before that has a kasra. This would occur when stopping, as in the word. Now look at this example here. Here I'm going to stop on the word hijr, right? What is the tendency to make the ra heavy, which I just did right now. I ended up making ra heavy. But what you do is you try to make the ra light. Okay? Ha has a kasra. The letter before ra is jim. It has a sukoon. So I look at the letter before jim. So the letter before jim here is ha. And it has a kasra, right? So now I end up making ra light. Because of the kasra on the letter ha, I end up making ra light. Okay? So hijr. Okay? Hijr. So make the jim qalqala and then put a pause on the sound of ra and make the light sound of ra. That is, you're doing tarqiq on ra by making the ra sound light. So this was the third case actually. Sorry, I skipped to the third case. If the ra has a sukoon, second one, let me do this again. The second one, I think I skipped here. If the ra is sakina and there is a kasra before it, then I will read the ra light. Like in the word fir'auna. Fir. Okay. Fa has a kasra, already the sound is light. Then you join it to the ra and say fir'auna taghfir. Okay, not taghfir. Don't make it taghfir. Right? It's taghfir. Fir. So what helps is when you focus on the kasra before the ra. When you make that light, because it has a kasra, the E sound, automatically it will become easy for you to make the raw light. Okay, the fourth case is, if ra is a sakina and there is a ya before ra. We make this mistake a lot because we don't know that even if before a ra, okay, as soon as you see a ya before it, the ra will be light. Whether the ya is a ya madya or whether it is a linear. Okay, you will make what? You will make the raw light. Whether the ya before the raw is a madya or a linear. Now let's look at what I'm trying to explain here. Okay, here the raw has a dhamma, a dhammatain, and if I'm stopping at the word qadir, okay, qadir. So what did I do? I put a sukun. The rule of stopping is I put a sukun on the letter ra. I look at the letter before it. The letter before it is a ya, okay, and the ya has a sukun. That is enough to tell me that I have to make ra light. Okay, in this case, this ya is ya madya, because before it is a letter with a kasra. So this ya is a madya. Look at the next one here. In this here, the ya before the ra is a lean ya, but still I will still make the ra sound tarqiq. So I'll not read as khayr. No, I'll read as khayr, khayr, khayr. Okay, the ra will be red light. So as soon as you see a ya sukun before a ra, just keep in mind the ra will always be tarqiq. Okay, ra will always be tarqiq, even if that the ya sukun before it is a lean ya. Okay. Okay, here وكبير. Okay, وكبير. So this is the ya again, which is a madya. So for both the cases, you will read ra light, tarqi. Okay, now we have some cases where you have the option. You have the option of reading it tarqiq or tafkhim. Okay, it's up to you. Whatever you feel like. You can read it tafkhim or you can read it tarqiq. So you have both the option. And let's look at the first one. Okay, so let's see. The cases where both tafkhim and tarqiq are allowed on the letter ra. If the ra is a sakina and it is preceded by a kasra and it is followed by a letter of isti'ala, okay, and this letter has a kasra on it, like in the example firqin, right? So see here, the letter before ra has a kasra and the letter after ra is an isti'ala letter. Okay, and it also has kasra. So let's look at this. If ra is sakina, here ra is a sakina, it is preceded by a kasra, an original kasra here, and it is followed by a letter of istiala. Istiala here, the istiala letter here is the letter qaf. And that istiala letter also should have a kasra. Okay, and this letter has a kasra. And so you can read this, you can read this firqin, or you can read it as firqin. Remember, we had the same rule here in our tafkhim ras. One of the rule of tafkhim ras was the letter before it has to have a kasra, an original kasra, and the letter after it has to be an istiala letter, right? So this is the only word which can be read both tafkhim or tarqiq. You can read it as firqin or you can read it as firqin, right? So you can read it both. Okay. If the ra is sakina and it is preceded by a sakin letter, which is preceded by a kasra, and the sakin letter which precedes the ra is a letter of an istiala group. Okay, so here look at this. The ra, before the ra, the letter is a sakin letter. Okay, in the word misr, right? You have Saad, which is a letter which has a sakin. Plus, the other thing is it is also a istiala letter. Look at the definition again here. There are two words in the Quran that have these circumstances when stopping on. Okay, no, I think if the ra is a sukun and it is preceded by a sakin letter, which is preceded by a kasra, and the sakin letter which precedes the ra is of the istiala group. Okay, so here you have a sakin letter before ra, which is istiala, and it is preceded by a kasra. Okay, so you can read this Tarqiq. So these are two words in the Quran that have the circumstances where you can, when stopping on them, these two words can be read with tafkhim or Tarqiq. Okay, so again here, you can read the raw with tafkhim or you can read it with Tarqiq. Whatever you are comfortable with. If I were you, I will just read it with Tarqiq because it's easy for me to remember. Okay, so memorize these words. The words al-qitr and then nisr. Okay, or and also this word al-firq, firqin, firq. These three words, if you memorize, you will remember. You remember that these words can be read either with tafkhim. The raw in these words can be read either with tafkhim or tarqiq. Okay. Okay. Now keep in mind, in some books, there are also these extra words that they have pointed out where both tafkhim and tarqiq are allowed. Okay. Look at the one here. Normally, I would, if I stop at the word wanudur, I would read it with a heavy raw, right? But you have the option of reading it also as a light raw. You can read it also as tarqiq. Yes. Here again, I would have read the raw heavy because of the fatha on ya, but then I have the option of reading it light. Okay, so I have the option of reading it heavy or light. And then I have these three, one, I think there was one more over here, right? Okay, the word asr and fa asri. Okay, so you can, fa asr. So you can read this light or heavy. So you have extra words which have been pointed out in other books where they can be read tafkhim or tarqiq. So you just have to memorize these words, especially when you take the exam. You will need to know that these words can be read both tafkhim and tarqiq. Okay, so you have to memorize these words. Alhamdulillah, we finished with book number 1. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. آمين يا رب العالمين.